yeah.
I'm doing a live tweet because our marketing literally starts when the show starts.
Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams.
His name is Crypto Like Mo. 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 His name is Crypto Like Mo.
If you're waiting for us to tag in, I'm out.
I'm out.
His name is Crypto Like Mo. Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams. And in between our episodes, Crypto Like Mo deleted his Twitter account and then undeleted it. So that was like the most exciting thing that happened this week, as far as I'm concerned. Other opinions are available. Assaf from Secret is with us this week, and he's being so stoic that he is actually frozen. Like we all know he's an elite hacker. He has literally hacked his own webcam and frozen it. He's actually just bustling around doing some chores, I'm sure.
Can you guys hear me though?
Hey, we can hear you.
Yep, there it is.
We can hear you, but we can't see you. But
I'm definitely moving.
You're frozen in a relatively handsome, if somewhat confused pose. So, it's up to you what you want to do about that knowledge.
Leave. He decided to leave.
Oh,
there it is.
That's actually a reasonable reaction to what just happened. So, So the whole Crypto Like Mo thing, that was a bit weird, and there are a bunch of other funny things that happened. So the Figment thing, was that this week as well?
Well, hold on. We've got a little bit more to talk about with Crypto Like Mo, because there was stuff that brought this on. I'm pretty sure what brought this on was like day one. He goes, "All right, I've sold all my Evmos and I've sold all my Juno and I've sold everything because they're going nowhere fast." And then like 12 hours later, he goes, "I have 10,000 Juno. It's going to the moon or whatever." And people were like, "Are you serious right now? You just said you burnt everything and now you're like talking it up. What is going on?" And then he closed his Twitter account.
And then
But he's also back now. So
and then he brought it back. So I guess he paper hands twice. I don't know.
Does he have what I think I'm blocked by him. So
why would that happen?
Was he like, "The joke's on you, I definitely have 10,000 What was the summary there?
I mean, I think that he shadow brought himself back, because I think there was something of an announcement whenever he left, and then he just kind of quietly slid back in, undeleted his account. He was probably like, "Oh, I've got a bunch of followers. I don't want to give that account up."
Yeah, I might find some other way of rugging them in future.
I don't know.
I saw the phrase soft rug recently, like in the last day, related to fan fury. And I was like, that's an interesting, that's a new term, but.
What was that? Wait, start over. What was that one?
So the context is a project that builds on a chain does I don't know if they actually did an airdrop or they promised an airdrop or they built up their kind of marketing presence on one chain, presumably with the promise of an airdrop or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they're, I think, now going Archway, I want to say. So essentially, yeah, it's kind of like, I guess it's like not delivering on a sort of implied thing.
Yeah.
It should really be a pre-rug, shouldn't it? It's like a pre-mine. It's like a pre-rug. It's like before the rug. Before the rug could even happen, we just taken the project. It's gone. It's away. You can't see it. You don't know it. It goes to another school.
Well, I was informed of a self-rugging recently. I had a meeting with the team today, and they were like, "Yeah, we were part of this team, and the two founders, they decided to rug each other because they stopped trusting each other, and they both decided to sell simultaneously, which got rid of all the liquidity and rugged themselves for an active project." So well, so then we kind of went and did a different project. I'm like, what?
Where do I invest in that? That sounds great.
Yeah.
Crazy crypto funding 101.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
But VCs are bad, man.
That's right.
Accountability to investors, bad.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Or something. I mean, yeah, there's a time and a place for everything, isn't there? But you do. So crypto, this is the spreadsheet, which those who are regular listeners will know that we refer to a lot because we are very professional. Mm-hmm. it's obviously more of a character at this point, I think, than an actual reality. But there's these sequential entries like crypto like Mo is gonzo, crypto like Mo is back. Why did crypto like Mo go in the first place? As like sometimes because we're in very different time zones. Sometimes when I don't know, when I see a thing there, I'm like, I didn't know that happened, so I just type why, what's going on here, and then that's how we build up content for the listeners of this show. So follow-ups from last week. Obviously Usurper was very angry about how the show ended, but I did some more looking around about the consultation for the digital pound, sometimes informally I had thought called Bitcoin, because that was like the thing a few years ago. It was super cringe. It's obviously super cringe, and you should only ever say Bitcoin really ironically with full hatred for whoever thinks that is a good name. But apparently
did you moniker that?
No,
you did,
it was
right?
It was like a
thing.
thing
It's been talked about.
Okay, it was a thing years ago where very, very lame, very kind of, I guess, right wing, economically bell ends were just like, the best thing will happen after Brexit. We can do lots of exciting new things like Bitcoin, and it's just like, you go fuck yourself. Anyway,
would you prefer something like Uckcoin or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, the sad thing is, it's just facetious enough a name to maybe actually be the correct name. But
it's not bad. I mean, it could be worse.
So, all right. But the thing I found is that, so apparently this whole consultation thing about digital pound, there are civil servants who are against the program and think it's like, whatever their objections, like it's pie in the sky thinking, it lets in, because the thing is, it's actually not going to be a cryptocurrency in all likelihood, but it's just, people who are skeptics of the ability to deliver, all that sort of stuff, have instead called the project shitcoin. I read that in a paper. I was like, now that's a name I can get behind. and we already know this. We've seen since 2016, the pound is 1-to-1 with the shittest coin. So it already is. It already is like definitive shitcoin. Yeah, great name. And the best thing about that though is that there's like, I don't know if you've ever seen In the Thick of It or In the Loop or something like that. Like, they're apparently pretty accurate as to what behind the scenes of British politics is like, with maybe a bit more swearing than reality, right?
Right, yeah.
But the fact that a civil servant would just be like shitcoin, completely can believe that, is 100% believable. The best bit is, I reckon whoever's calling it shitcoin does not actually even know that that's a thing in crypto. So it's just
right. They just thought it was
just emergent behavior.
Right?
People are just going like, "This is a shit coin," and you're like, "It is. It is a shit coin.
It is a shit coin."
What else would you call it?
You suddenly turn into Jeremy Clarkson there for a second. It is a shit coin.
Oof.
It sounded like it.
Anyway,
if it doesn't depeg, they can call it whatever the fuck they want, right?
Hey, look, if we can pay our staff in it,
yeah,
that would actually be like,
if I could use it here,
useful.
if I could
IBC that shit,
if I could actually use it like in real life somewhere, like they can call it whatever the hell they want. Bitcoins.
You could call it whatever the heck you get. A little bit of Matthew McConaughey there for a second.
Ooh, that reminds me. Before we don't have the USK exploit on here. Yeah. I'm going to add that to the sheet right now.
USK exploit.
Put one more flexible stablecoin on there.
USK.
One more slightly elastic stablecoin.
USK depeg of the week, right? Isn't it a few times now? Yeah.
Yep.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
I thought so. Or maybe it was not depeg. Maybe it was more exploits than depegs.
I'm not sure of either of those. As far as I'm aware, this is the first exploit of the USK contract. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll come back to it later. Hopefully, maybe, who knows?
In death, a member of Project Tombstone has a name. Okay. Well, we've had no tombstones this week, so we've got to talk about cybersecurity, haven't we? And Rama in the chat has said, I guess this is in reference to the soft rug, kind of like Lavana did with their NFT side of the project. Yeah. Sometimes that was legal concerns, wasn't it? Something like that. They spoke to their legal team. Somebody probably said the word security, and then that was that. Maybe hard to say. I heard something like that at the time. So, are we going to talk about 103 and 104 on the hub? Because that's maybe the biggest drama du jour. Because that all sort of spilled out into other chains, didn't it, over the weekend?
But do we have to talk about it?
I mean, do you want to? I think at this point, like, I'm going to say mood of the room is like, yeah, maybe fun Confio.
Maybe. Well, I think the 103 drama was how many different ways will they be funded, right? And are there concurrent ways, and who has the prime, and who's picking up the spare? And first, like, oh, this group isn't going to fund it, so we started this other one. But then the first group back said we are going to fund it, so then do we do the second one? Like, I think that's where that's coming from, right? Is like, is there a budget, and is there a budget of need, and is there a makeup of the solutions that fit into that need in an orderly way that people understand what the hell's being funded? And I think the answer to that probably right now is no, or at least it's pretty murky. That's kind of what I see in LS.
Well, to me, also, what I find is interesting is how the conversation is completely surrounded like their expenses. The conversation is totally, well, your expenses are met. How could you possibly need more money?
Yeah, right.
Well, it might just happen that we have other projects that we want to keep going with doing COSM WASM, and there's backlogs we want to hit. But God forbid we have anything of a rainy day fund or something.
No, yeah. Everybody wants everyone to make the bare minimum so they can be successful, right? So, like, I think that's just like slightly human nature in some sort of sense is question. Like, people have never had a organizational budget, then they look at it, and then also the way we talked about this before, but the way that these teams present their numbers they're awful. Like, they just do a really poor job of like actually laying out where the dollars are going, and also talking at a greater level in terms of what this enables, and what of that is like runtime needs, and what is it related to growth, and what is this like, they just do a pretty poor job of that. And then the groups that are funding those don't, like we talked about before, is they don't restate those in any sort of way that makes it easier for people to make decisions around it, right? And especially when they overlap and they're all mixed up, I think it becomes a lot of confusion.
Yeah, and I think there's a tough point to it too, where, you know, Confio is integrated with several projects and or teams. Like I don't know what their interaction with T-Grade is necessarily, but I know that's come up. And I know that they're kind of used in tandem with T-Grade. My understanding is that they don't own T-Grade, but they were like the developers that were commissioned to build it effectively, right? Yeah. But it's not really clear what all those different interactions are. And then, of course, we have Wind now. But my understanding of Wind is it's more of an Ethan thing, not a Confio thing. And so how do all these things kind of intertwine? Not that I really fault, or not that I do not fault them for not making everything 100% clear, because I probably wouldn't have thought of bringing that up in the first place when we were talking about like the single entity. But I definitely feel like it's a little opaque.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I think Wind is two developers from Confio, and they pay Ethan for consultancy. There's some interaction there, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I know Ethan is obviously involved, and he's involved in the design, but I heard that the actual, whatever the entity is that Wind is going to land on, because they are putting one together, I don't think Ethan is actually involved in that entity, although he has worked as a developer on Wind. Yeah. I think it's okay, actually, I was about to say a name, and then I realized I don't know who's doxed and who's not, so I'm not going to say anything.
Rama says Ethan and Milan down in the chat.
Okay, so Milan is doxed. Okay, right.
I mean, that's the other thing, is like everybody's involved in everything, right? So you have different project owners or team members that have like 3 or 4 other side projects, and so like the idea of like, oh, we need this money for this team, even though the members of that team might be on different, like, it's goofy, right? But again, that doesn't mean that it's not it doesn't mean that the numbers aren't correct, but people try to be able to understand. Like, then everybody turns into a judge and jury around what does it take to run a business when people have no understanding of how much it takes to run a business, right? Or what cost goes to that.
It also doesn't help that like the numbers involved are vary from the hip, and also as if you like when somebody says to you, "Oh, it's about $2 million," you're like, "Okay, so it's not $2 million," and that instantly it just trips the bullshit kind of alarm. But the thing is, it probably is $2 million. It's probably like $2.17 million or something like that.
Right.
And like there was a whole thing, and we've had this as well to a lesser extent with like HAL and the stuff that we've done. People like being like, "Where's your roadmap? Why haven't you done more stuff? What are you doing?"
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, look, okay. And I kind of, you know, when Confio are like, "Oh yeah, $2 million for a year," or whatever it was, is our burn. I was like, yeah, I mean, last time I worked for a startup that was VC funded, it was, I think our burn was 200 grand a month on base salaries plus and it was basically £2 million, so a bit more in dollars was the yearly burn. And when we were looking like we were running out of cash, everybody got made redundant. That was because it was just like, you look at the numbers and you're like, we're not going to bring in the amount of income to cover those salaries in the next 6 months, so we have to cut everybody loose now. Otherwise, we're going to run out of money completely in 6 months. So that's the other thing that people maybe don't know, is that you're on a decision-making cycle where, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, right? And they're European, so I'm kind of vaguely assuming a place where you have to give notice and you have to pay people during their notice. So that's obviously the case here. You know, you're okay. So like 1 month notice times every person. So you've got to make a decision 1 month before you running out of cash. Yeah. And then you've got to, you know, if you want any chance of surviving as a business when times get like existentially tough, like existential risk to the business tough, you know?
The other thing is, I think, which I think we might have mentioned before, but these types of proposals should be funding output, not teams. So they should be funding specific types of deliverables, not teams. This Confio one is about teams. It's all about, hey, we have 10 people and this is our burn rate and we think we need 25. And by the way, this is going to support CosmWasm and CosmJS and quote unquote many other related repos. Fuck all that. Like, tell me what the budget is for CosmWasm for the next 2 years, and let's fund CosmWasm.
Or CosmJS, right?
Or CosmJS, whatever it is,
like
right?
Nothing can happen without CosmJS.
Put two up, and if the people don't want CosmWasm and they want CosmJS, and that's what they want to put in, and we want deliverables associated, then put that as. Say exactly what it takes to be able to deliver CosmJS for the next 2 years, and then put that up for proposal. This is funding teams. Like, it's not. There's no deliverables in here. It's just like, hey, we got a bunch of people and we do a bunch of shit for the thing. And they do great work. I'm not bad mouthing the team or what they do, but that's not how you fund projects. Like, if you go into like any business, like, hey, we think we should enter this new business area, but that business area would be, here's what we get out of it. Here's what the cost to be able to get there. And it's very specific in terms of what we're buying, right? And what the deliverables and milestones on. There's like no milestones in here. Again, this goes back to like a general, we don't know how to run projects, or we don't know how to run engagements. We don't know how to run like deliverables over a period of time to get from A to B. And so just throw us 96,000 Atom and we're going to support all this type stuff. It's too nebulous. Like, anyway, like it's a real challenge, I think.
I really like the way you put that, because I've been thinking and struggling with this a little bit lately, because the way it's kind of being presented is, it seems like companies are forced to be, for lack of a better word, public in cryptocurrency, rather than being, public versus private. It's just public. If you want funding, you need to be a public entity, but being a public entity then gets into like the securities area. And the way it's being treated right now with a lot of these proposals is as if they're a public entity, when the reality is they're not. They're a private company that's providing public good.
These are small private companies. Like, even if they're like Confio, they're like, oh, we've got like 15 staff. You're like, so you're a small startup sized company.
Literally,
like these are not big. Yeah, like you say, they're not big public companies. That level of transparency is.
Yeah. Like, go ahead, Schultze. What are you gonna say? We're gonna finish.
No, that was basically it. Is that we're talking about these little companies, and so like there's this desire for this utmost level of transparency. Oh, where all your funding going towards? Like, yeah, I can tell you how much I spent on relaying this month or whatever. Should people be able to request how much I have spent? I don't really. I mean, I guess if you're talking about funding me for specifically relaying, then yeah.
Then yeah, you're right. Then you could produce a report to show that, right? You know what your fees are associated with that, right?
Yeah, but there's this expectation of transparency. I think is just such an interesting conversation within the space of private companies.
Yeah, but again, like I think it does come back to the idea of inexperienced individuals and groups having responsibility for treasuries that they should not have responsibilities for, and how this goes to a general populace of saying yes or no. Like, I mean, let's move to 104. So Notional puts out that I forget what the request was. It was
they asked for 40,000 Atom per year for 3 years.
All right, so 120.
So they want a 3-year funding. I was going to bring up this up next as well. Sorry for interrupting.
That's okay.
That it's wild that now, like, the conversation changed so quickly from Confio on 103 asking for
96,000.
Yeah, and I think I think to that extent, it's less than 1 year of funding. And then Notional, immediately the next proposal goes for immediately 3 years of funding. And I want to say there's a requirement of those tokens being staked on their validator until they're sold. There's something like that within there. So it's such a weird, different conversation and change of like, and it all kind of started with the Cosmic Validator proposal where they're like, oh, well, they got funding for creating videos. Well, then, I'm not going to reduce Confio's proposal for that, but I guess you could extend it to the 221 or whatever for the interchain information proposal. But I'm going off the rails here a little bit, so I'll back off.
Yeah, that's okay. So they came out and they like this one was for 40,000 atoms per year to do hub maintenance and incident response. Notional will monitor the Cosmos Hub for vulnerabilities on a 365 to 24/7 basis. Okay. When we become aware of an ongoing vulnerability, we will coordinate with relevant teams, SDK, IBC, Common Tendermint, to produce a patch. We'll assist in rolling these patches out to validators, resolve the incident as soon as possible. But nobody's asked for that role, right? Like there's other teams that do that. There's other groups that have involvement within here. I don't know. Like at least that like that's a deliverable that we can make a decision on to say, do we want a support team for Cosmos? Like, do we want a Cosmos Atom support team for the cost of $500,000 a year in liquidity? And that's an actual, at least it's something we can look at. And they're not saying how many people are involved in that. They're just saying, this is what we're going to do for this. And then there's no SLAs, of course. What the hell? Other than we're going to watch for it. But they're at least putting something out there to say we want to be able to play this role. And people can make a decision on it.
There's honestly a lot about Notional's proposal that I really like. I think that as a concept, it's laid out, at least as I understand it, really well, where they're like, hey, there's this role we want to fill. We want 3 years of tokens, so 3-year guarantee of payment. However, we're not actually going to hold those tokens. They're going to go into a third party. Third party will stake on us, and then they'll have vesting. So as this happens, it rolls out. I really like that, actually. I like that idea of it. Too often, like the Conf proposal, in it, they say that we're basically just going to sell it immediately as soon as we get it. And I'm not strictly opposed to that. There are two different ways of going about it, but I do like the idea of Notional's notion of being like, all right, we're just going to roll it out really slowly.
Yeah, and Confio, actually, they should be, if this is truly for a salary over a period of time and they think they have a burn rate, we know what that burn rate is, and this should be sold on a monthly basis, not everything up front. Like they should take it as a salary, right? And stake it until it needs it or do whatever, right? They should manage it that way.
Yeah, maybe not. But then there's a problem there with vesting, right? Because again, depending on your jurisdiction, vesting may be really suboptimal for a business.
All right, so they hold it.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's like vesting, and then there's like an escrow contract that releases on the 1st of every month.
You're right. It should be more of an escrow. That's right. You're right. It should be a grant on a specific date, right? You're right.
There's a lot of like people talking about vesting at the moment, and it does my fucking head in, because if somebody offers us vesting, I tell them to go fuck off.
Right. Well, I mean, you're paying the tax up front on something that might depreciate.
But also,
like
technically, you're supposed to account for that every block, right? And obviously, that's not going to happen. But it's just why not do the same thing, but just release it on a regular schedule?
Right.
It's just a few more lines of. In fact, it's probably easier to code. Like that's the thing. Not written an escrow contract. I've obviously written some stuff around vesting. Vesting's really fucking hard. Like an escrow is actually quite straightforward. The only thing that's obviously very easy to fuck up is the target blocks, if you're doing it by blocks. Otherwise, you can do it by block time, but that, don't try. Like, it is fine to do times, but I don't trust them, basically, is my review of times in almost any computer programming context, but doubly fucking so in blockchain. But you just can't trust those times. But I mean, Assaf, what's your take here? Like, because you obviously, like, you folks at Secret, like Juno, you obviously have a relationship with Confio, you have interaction with them. Like, because my gut feeling, like, I'm kind of with Schultz and Usurper on this, where I'm like, I trust Confio to deliver value, and I trust them to deliver value up to the amount they're asking for. But the lack of deliverables, I may be a feral programmer now, but like I did work in industry once, and like the complete lack of deliverables does make you go like, if somebody came into tender in my old life and was just like, we want to do this and give us some money, I'd be like, all right, lads, I'm pretty relaxed, but you're going to have to at least put some bullet points for me. with maybe some dates.
Yeah, well, I think like Scholz said, it's an interesting issue because either way, people will complain. Like if you give a bullet list of deliverables, they will start to pick it apart. And if you just give like a big number, and then they will start to ask, what are the deliverables, the milestones, and such. So either way, you're going to get like people coming at you. So. And plus, they're a small business, like they're probably 15 people. Like if you tell them to just work on CosmWasm, but they have other projects, so what? They should fire people because they only get funding for CosmWasm? Like it's a hard question.
I guess there is. What's interesting, I guess, is like the way you expressed it just there, where do you fire the people that don't work on the thing that's been funded? There is a model for that, isn't there? Which is a corporate partnership or a corporate secondment, where like if you're, I don't know, Pepsi, right? I don't know. We were talking about Pepsi and Monster before the show. It's not important why, listeners, but the Top Gun sponsored by Monster Energy. There you go. That's the reason. And yes, it is Schultz's Tash. Anyway, the point is, Pepsi have decided that they want to, I don't know, I'm struggling to think of a charity. Somebody think of a charity like MAG, right? Landmines. I don't know why that's the first one came to my head. Pepsi are like, we really need to get rid of landmines. I don't know why Pepsi are doing that. It's a thing, marketing, whatever.
Don't talk bad about Pepsi's care about landmines. What are you talking about?
They care a lot about landmines. That's why they're doing a partnership with MAG, right?
Yeah.
So they go to MAG, like a group that know how to clear landmines.
Okay.
And they go to them, we want to do a project where you clear landmines and we want to pay for it. And then MAG would I guess go and pick an operational area they work in where there's landmines. And then they would go, okay, well, here's the project and here's the people involved and here's the time scale and here's what's going to cost you. But it's typically, my understanding is those sorts of engagements are time boxed and the money is ring fenced to the project team that is doing the thing. So if they're like, we're going to take out mines are there still mines in former Yugoslavia? Maybe. This is really taxing for this late on a Wednesday.
I'm totally zoning out.
So they could say like, we didn't do it in this place with these people. Money's ring fenced. Pepsi, the bill is $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be able to say, oh, okay, we actually think there's this other role that we could spend some money on. That'd be really cool because that's going to allow us to get rid of loads of landmines, but just like not in that one area, whatever. They'd be like, no, that's out of scope for this partnership, right? So maybe that's like the problem is we're looking at this from the point of view of like you should have the final say in your own business if you're a small business. But if you were like a big business or a big charity or something like that where you do commercial partnerships, there is like a model for this where you say I'm going to hire 3 people, they're going to work on this, and that's fucking it, right?
Yeah, but that whatever that budget is might be beyond those 3 people. That team might have 3 or 4 of these proposals up that can fund different pieces. Like, and but I do agree. But I do think that we're buying, like the community's buying output and deliverables, not teams, right? They're not buying contractors. Like they're buying. There's an output to this, right? Like the team is saying, hey, we're going to support Cosm.js or something for a year. So we think it's this many people to be able to do that. I would assume that ask is more than their salaries, right? That ask this is a revenue number so we have a cost to that. We have a margin associated to that because we're not doing work for charity, right? So we're going to assume it's a 40% margin. We have $500,000 of cost. We add another, $400,000 on top of that. We're asking for $900,000 over 1 year to be able to support that Cosm.js, right? If another team can do that cheaper, then maybe they deserve that business, but I doubt it, right? So, and then if that $900,000, if that means that that extra margin allows them to do something else and be able to grow another part of the business and be able to get something else sponsored and be able to build that out, that's how that should happen, right? But the idea of just saying, hey, we need $2 million over 3 years to support a bunch of stuff and we're good guys. I think that's if there's enough trust there, then maybe the community gets there. But the idea is that we're like the community is buying output, right? They're buying new users or they're buying code that's going to generate more value, not teams. So they should be pricing that accordingly. Like they should show that and what that requires to do that.
I have a follow-up question to that. So, Assaf, I think that Secret was, if not the first CosmWasm chain, the second CosmWasm chain after Terra. When you guys had started using CosmWasm, did you get any sort of have any sort of ongoing relationship with Confio whenever you were developing Secret?
Yeah.
And if that's you did.
What was
So-
the other part?
So I guess the question is that ongoing relationship with upstream chains like part of the proposal, because that seems like a really big value add. I know security updates are, but providing support as a service, I suppose, seems like something that should be strictly outlined as well. And maybe that's how they should get another source of funding, right? Is, hey, we're a secret network. We use CosmWasm.
Yeah.
We will throw an additional funding for you to have some sort of like support lifeline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess.
Not that I'm making the statement that Secret should.
Yeah,
just I'm
obviously.
curious on what their what Confio's relationship has been with the downstream chains.
Yeah, for us, like since I guess 2020, it's just like maybe security updates and stuff like that. We worked pretty closely with them since I think March of 2020, up until we launched on September 2020. And then I guess like we drifted apart because we stuck with the V0.10 of CosmWasm for 2 years, and they kept on building. But early on, we worked very closely together. We worked on the upstream CosmWasm code and then cut a version for ourselves and took it from there. Like our version is almost a complete rewrite of the internals, and we just kept the API,
Yeah.
which is sometimes a pain in the ass to
Yeah.
get updates from upstream because we need to rewrite them too. But we had to do this to add the privacy features we wanted.
So I guess it's maybe doesn't affect Secret in the same way, but the question then kind of circles back around to public goods, right? Which is that if you use a thing like an open source library to ship a product, in a perfectly ideal world, everybody makes enough money to get by and you send some money back upstream to the projects that you rely on, right? But like in a realistic world where budgets are always having to be justified, how long do you continue kicking back to a public good project? Because, it doesn't feel like you should have to pay forever, right? That's because then that's free as in beer, not free as in freedom,
Yeah.
right? You always should. There is a point where you go, yeah, okay, like we've contributed back enough. I don't know. It's a difficult hypothetical, I think, because if something wouldn't exist without the other thing, yeah.
I guess it depends on the rate of change and how much is like, when does it go beyond just development into like long-term support type of things, or if I'm just doing security, like I'd assume some of those decisions would come into that. Or in this case, like if it moves to Cosm.js, and maybe that should be the one that receives bulk funding or something similar to that. I can't believe we talked about this topic for 40 minutes. Like that's unbelievable to me that we wanted to avoid 103 and 104, and now we're 40 minutes in. Crazy.
I honestly find it such a fascinating topic, though, because the topic of funding and of like responsibility and how opaque the company is, it's just such an all-encompassing topic, especially when you have two proposals that are looking for the same goals, but implemented just completely differently. Which, to that end, Soy2 Studio made a really great point earlier, that the multi-sig for Notional's proposal is all internal Notional employees. So it's a little bit... not as great as I thought.
That's not good.
Well, but it's their ask, right? Why would it be somebody outside? Who cares?
Well,
if they stop delivering, right? Like if they decide after year one that they're like, meh, I guess we're good. We've done enough. Well, they've got 2 more years of funding that they can walk away with.
So should a multi-sig with either community or project or somebody else be on every single funding proposal?
Yes.
I don't know about that. I think that certainly. I think it depends. If you're going for 3 years, then yeah. If you're going for a quick buyout or payout like Convio, no, I don't think that's necessary.
I mean, okay, fucking spicy opinion here, but I think if you've got like a 3-year thing,
nobody should.
You not only should have a proper multi-sig on it, but you should be paying the people on the multi-sig, because you are saying, oh, for the next 3 years, you have to pay attention to this, number one, and like, not leave the ecosystem, go do something else. What if regulation changes on that subject? Like, you're sticking your neck out in a way that I think is like not particularly obvious by doing something like that.
And there's no reason for 3-year proposals right now. That I didn't even think about that. Like, this business is measured in fucking months. There's no reason for 3. Like, who knows what the hell's going to happen in 3 years? We got 120,000 atoms sitting around somewhere. Like, ask again next year, right? Like, I don't like, that seems ridiculous. Like, is it? Can we reject? So we can't reject 2 years, 2 and 3 if year 1 sucks, right? So there's no, right, to your point, from a multi-sig perspective or even for anything else, you can't pull that back. So I agree. Like, it should be, maybe that should be a thing, is like you can't request more than 1 year's of funding and then come back next year for the next piece. Like, that seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite standard corporate contract, is a year, because you can provide a cost so that you can hire an employee for 2 years to do 1 year's work, so you don't have to fire them at month 9, right? Yeah. Because that's the reality of and this is the thing, because I am an idiot, right? So I have to get our finance guys to explain to me how this stuff works and why. Like, I've seen it play out. Like, I've been made redundant in a startup and all this kind of shit. Like, and I've been in the thing where you look at the company's finances, especially in a startup, you look at the burn rate and you're like, shit, they're going to fire us next month.
Right.
And then they do. And you're like, okay, cool. I can do elementary maths. But like, the fact that I can intuit it doesn't mean I know the full reasoning behind all those things. So this is one of the big things I think that, those of us that aren't business geniuses like Usurper have had to like work out over the last year, especially with the big bull pump and then bear crash, and then all the tax implications of that and whatnot, is actually like working out how you do cash flow for a business has been like one of the biggest learnings. I thought it would be simple. It is not simple. But like, the rule of thumb, our accountants have just, and our finance people have just, because we're obviously keen to bring on full-time staff rather than contractors, and they're just like, you need 2 years in the bank. 2 years in the bank. If you've got a contract that's bringing in 2 years of salary, once you do that and you've got your percentage on top, then you can hire one person, because then you don't have to fire them at month 10 when you're like, oh God, we haven't been renewed. You can instead be like, all right, we need to find new work to cover this salary, but look, we've got a year and 2 months to find work before we have to fire you, and we've still made our, whatever it is, 10%, 20%.
It's a lot harder. It's definitely a lot harder in the EU than it is here in the US. That's for sure. I mean, everybody's at will. Like, fire anybody at any point for any reason, like any
which
reason.
Is nuts to me. But
anything. Today's your last day. You're done now, right? Like, that's it. So, from an at-will perspective, there's a little bit easier controls to say, hey, this is going south. It's not great, right? You don't want to, like, we've worked very hard over 20 years to not put anybody out in the street, right? Because you want to be, but I don't need as much runway as you guys do, right? Because you need a lot of runway, because when you bring somebody on full time, you're making a pretty long-term commitment to that employee. Now, if they decide to leave, that's different, right? Then you're done. But from your perspective, as a business owner, in the EU, it's really tough. Like, we used to have an office in Amsterdam. I remember that very, very clearly, is once you make that decision, you're in it.
Yeah. And this is why, like, the thing that that I did before crypto was I did contract work, because if you need like a project lead, or you need like people for technical due diligence, or any number of things that require a software engineer where you just like need them like next week.
Yeah.
But you don't really know how long you're going to need them. There is like obviously a booming market as a result of this, and that's something that like I've done in my career as this is actually quite interesting. If you like chopping and changing every 6 months, it's quite a good thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But capacity planning is hard, and it's kind of all the way back to the thing you said at the start, which is that ordinary people, like I've been running this business for 3 years, and it's only in the last 12 months that really have had like a full understanding of how all of that stuff fits together in terms of what we can and can't actually afford.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no surprise that the average person looks at the funding proposal and goes, "That's too much money," or "I don't understand it," or because I barely understand it and I have to deal with this stuff.
Especially even like people don't even understand salaries. Like a typical salary for a good engineer might be $160,000 to $250,000 US. Like that is a pretty reasonable salary in blockchain. If you are at home holding tokens and you think people are making $20 an hour doing this type of work, that's incorrect. They are making somewhere between 100, and even that range might be a little bit low depending on the skill sets involved, right? And
Sure.
and what they want from an ownership perspective, tokens inbound, a percentage of ownership in terms of the business, like those are expensive individuals, and it's a small supply and a high demand for those types of things. So
Yeah.
and people who have 50 Atom in a wallet and they saved up $500 to be able to get there and are hoping to have that moon to $45. Behind the scenes, there's some real big salaries to try to make projects that do that. I don't think people really understand that. Like, I don't think they understand the cost of some of these things going there. Now, again, like I also think that like we're not buying salaries, we're buying projects and we're buying outcome. That's for those teams to figure out what their cost is to deliver. That's not the community's. The community, like if you say
But that is relevant for a core chain team, let's say.
For a core chain team, but like this Confio
looking,
thing,
right,
like they have,
they're showing how do we pay whatever $150,000, $160,000 plus a vest plus whatever to attract talent that's going to be incentivized to work for more than 6 months on a project, because that's the other thing, right?
Yeah, but like Confio says, hey, we have 10 people, we need 25 people to do this. Who voting on this has any effing clue whether that's reasonable or not? I'm in this business. I don't know if that's reasonable. I don't know. Can you have 25 developers working on a CosmWasm GitHub repository at the same time, not overlapping each other? There's no single threaded items in there. Like, is there really 25? Like, I've been on some big teams, 25 wide and developers working on one project. That's a pretty big code base where you're not stepping on each other, where you're not like typically you have teams of like 5 or 6 people that are working on something very specific. 25 at once, all working on the same project, full time, 40 hours, 365, or 2,000 hours a week or a year. That seems 2,000
That's
a year.
A lot of developers.
2,000
That is.
That's
if I
like
had 25 developers.
What the hell? Like that seems
crap.
excessively big for a project. Like that's a big project. Not like, and you can see how much code's in there, but again, like, and that might include testers, right? And you have other people involved. Like, it's not all devs, right?
I think that's all in. I think it's all employees. I think
still
devs is probably 10, 11 max.
But is there anybody qualified? How many people that are voting on this are qualified to determine if that's correct or not?
I've also remembered another complication is that obviously in most European countries you have national insurance as well. So if your all-in salary is $160,000, the employer has to then put in $100,000 or so, maybe less, I don't know, but it is a significant portion of the salary into national insurance and tax. So your all-in cost for hiring somebody is probably like, I don't even actually know what it is.
Healthcare
is a scary number.
Healthcare here and unemployment insurance here and everything. Like here, it's about 18% over. So if it's 100,000 salary, it's usually about 118 with unemployment insurance and everything else. And then healthcare is on top of that. Like if you're doing a stipend or something else is QSERA, or if you're doing something else, like that's different, but because that's extremely expensive here. Whether you're going to help the employee or not, because at small companies, you don't necessarily have to. But anyway, why are we still talking about these goddamn proposals? 50 minutes now. Can we talk about something more fun?
Okay, so apparently in the UK, the average cost is 1.7 times basic salary.
Oh man!
Wow.
Jesus. So what is that? Taxes? Like what is that? Is that all just employer responsibilities for government payments that support the employee in case of healthcare, this, that, everything else, right?
It's basically, I think, all NICs.
What's that? What's that NIC?
NICs is national insurance contributions.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically state pension and a kind of miscellaneous. So national insurance was originally for essentially state pension, old age provision. I mean, some socialized healthcare, but the NHS is like a totally different thing. Like you can never pay NICs in your entire life.
Yeah.
And obviously you get free access to the NHS. So it is somewhat nebulous. And there is currently a public debate going on in the UK whether there should specifically be a ring fenced. No, this part of your salary is not NICs. This is your NHS tax.
I mean,
because the thing is, like in the UK, the NHS is so uncontroversial. Everybody's happy to pay for. Everybody knows that if your tax is going towards the NHS, we're fine with it.
Yeah.
What we don't like it generally
except like 55% of the population or so.
What?
Brexit joke. Never mind. Moving on.
Oh, right. They hate Europe. They thought the NHS would be good. They thought because that was the thing they put on the bus, wasn't it? They said
the bus thing. Yeah,
they said leave Europe and we'll have more money for the NHS. And then
right.
It turns out that all the nurses were Spanish. So
shit, backfire. Yeah,
Poindexter.
But again, like in the US, like if you actually looked at everybody's all-in piece of that with the healthcare costs people pick up individually, and if you take that as an average, it might be lower. If you take that as an extremes in terms of people who have had significant healthcare costs or the types of things, I mean, it's absolutely bankrupted millions of individuals, right? So, I mean, there's when you put that thing in one, if you put that in one bucket and you say, okay, it's 170%, it sounds ridiculous. If we actually took a cross section of folks here in the U.S. and you actually figured it out, it'd probably be pretty reasonable in the grand scheme of things, right? So I don't know. But people don't like to talk about that shit, right? They just like the idea of that everybody's in control of their own.
I've just also realized that last number was because it was on a recruitment calculator site and they were assuming recruitment fees and extra stuff. It's actually lower. It's lower than I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's like just over 25. It's going to be about 25%, something like that.
Ben Davis says, fuck that bus.
Fuck that bus.
Cosmos says, fuck the system. Finally, something we can all agree upon.
Yeah. So base salary of 100K, NICs are 14,131.
Oh, that's not bad. It's only 14%.
Yeah, so that's definitely less than what we're paying if you take into account like our personal costs. I mean, I'm paying $1,000 a month just for health insurance, not even including deductibles or anything.
Yeah. And the employer has to contribute towards pension as well. So there's some additional costs.
Yeah, we don't have that.
Aren't just NICs, but yeah, it's like a 20, 25, 30%, maybe 30% all in or something like that. And then some additional first year cost.
I shouldn't have said that. We do have that. We have a mandatory Social Security payment that comes out of if you do salary. I shouldn't have said that. But beyond Social Security, which is pretty light in terms of reward, in terms of coverage when you retire, there's no mandatory like 401s or other types of things, 401ks or other types of IRA programs that are in place. Although there's a lot of options for small businesses to have. Small businesses actually do much better in terms of retirement opportunities than enterprise companies that have.
I tell you what,
a little bit more.
I was very excited about that when I learned that last year. I was like, really? I could do that? Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be damned.
Especially, I think the U.S. does a pretty decent job. I think a way to think about it is the reason that we're so fucked is they cater to large enterprise businesses, and there's a lot of workarounds to kind of core rules, and they try to be able to help large enterprise employers. At the same time, the U.S. does a pretty good job of trying to spur innovation, and they do that there are a lot of benefits to small independent LLCs or single owner companies or other types of things. And that's been getting better over time because they realize that gig economy and people being entrepreneurs and starting and breaking out. I think that's been an area that the U.S. government has always tried to be able to support in some way or the other, if they can.
We have a weird relationship here where, at least like from my perspective, it kind of seems like small and medium companies sort of pay the brunt. They're the riskiest businesses, usually doing the most innovative stuff. Or the most essential stuff, like, a coffee shop down the road is not like the most innovative thing, but the owner's taken on a big risk. They're doing a thing.
Yeah.
And that's like the bread and butter of the economy as well, is those kind of
absolutely
preneurs, if you like, to reference the Social Network. But
What have you entered?
Obviously those people like are small enough that by and large they're paying the tax. They're just trying to get by and like not cause the trouble and all that kind of stuff. But like, the biggest players in the economy are not Ben Davis said, I'm glad I arrived in time.
The taxis.
Hey, look, we have a big AWS bill, and like fuck are AWS paying a goddamn cent in the UK. I'd be astonished if they pay any tax here. And it would a little bit surprise me if we paid more tax than them, but it also wouldn't potentially surprise me. So, swings and roundabouts. I'm going to quickly run through some comments because I've noticed some. So we've got going back a few minutes here, we've got Assaf. Don't know who this guy is. Looks handsome, but he says, "I'm here to shut up." Cryptic. We've got Cause Less Harm asking what would happen to the chain if Notional didn't get funded.
Nothing.
Good question. Probably nothing.
Well, hold on. I want to go back to that one for just a second. If Notional didn't get funded, yeah, I think the answer is probably nothing, but there'd be a little bit more leverage. And I think that'll affect the smaller chains the most, the ones that don't yet have the staff or the knowledge base yet to actually implement their own like security structure. I think that's where Notional really shines.
If Notional gets funding, does that necessarily mean that anybody else who puts in for the same idea does not get funded? What if Strangelove came out and said, "You know what? We want that one. We think that we want to be able to do that." Would they go, "Oh shit, I'd totally do that." Like I want Jack and team to be able to be 24/7 365 support for all Cosmos Hub issues.
Well, yeah, only if Jack personally though. Otherwise, nah.
Well, it could be Jabby too. But
that's true. You do have Jabby. He's also
Jabby
always
and
involved
Winston.
there.
Yeah. So
with a little headset.
Would somebody say, "Okay, we're going to revoke this other one," or those are already tied, so therefore this is it for the next 3 years? Like that's again, this is like so goofy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the thing to be said is that I think some chains would have just died sooner if Notional weren't involved.
Of course.
And the question of whether that's a good thing or not, I think is a fair question. Like some of these chains, maybe when Dragonberry rolled around, they should have just been like,
it's funny.
That's that, and then just shut down.
Everybody likes a comeback.
Yeah, and
Like
it's
Kim
worth saying as well, obviously, that like a lot of the Dragonberry stuff was like, not to minimize anybody's contribution in all of that, but there were key players who were actually putting it together for everybody, and a lot of those people are in common between the hub, other large players in the system, and obviously Osmosis. And they were very careful about the order they did it, and they secured the chains with the most value locked first, and were very communicative and very professional. And when it really hits the fan, you tend to find that people just get up and do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that work shouldn't be valued. It should be valued. But back to what would practically happen, that is what happened with Dragonberry. And the devs who found it and patched it literally made patches for every other chain.
Yeah.
They went and did that for all of the key chains. So yeah. I guess this is related to the funding stuff earlier. Every chain using and relying on Cosmos and Cosmos.js should contribute to the team behind it. As to be honest, some chains made millions during previous bull market, and they're avoiding to give a really small chunk to Confio.
But other chains have, right? Wasn't Juno the first one to actually fund that? And I believe Stargaze did as well early on, and some others. Like that has happened, right? It's not like this is the first time they've ever come back for this.
Yeah, I think it's more just the difficulty of funding in the bear market, where some chains haven't, collateralized into other things.
We've talked about a Game of Notes chain. The what would actually be valuable is a funding specific contract chain, like to be able to actually build some guardrails. Like this is so distributed and so kind of broken up. Some sort of way to centralize funding requests, the structure of those, the review of those, the distribution of those, the rules around it, contract enabled. So like even Cosmos can't in the Cosmos Hub, they couldn't even write there's no Cosmosm, right? They couldn't even write a contract to deliver that over a period of time, right? They would have to be all manual. There's no controls over that.
I mean, I think that makes sense for it to be Juno, right? With DAO.
It would
I think
totally
you
be
just
sense.
described DAO. Yeah.
There's a real big case to be made around somehow centralizing some of this type of thing. Sorry, Todd just said he can't hear me, but now if I screw with it now in post, I'm going to be fucking with levels for the next 4 hours.
Just brick wall
56
compressor.
minutes.
Brick wall compressor. Just put the Mick Gordon Doom compressor
That's what I do.
on it.
I do. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, that's a good
under, so that like it's fine when you're talking, and then as soon as you stop talking, like every little speck of dust is like.
Yeah. That's a good album.
Which one?
The Doom Eternal soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
It's freaking fucking crazy.
It's really, really great.
Anyway, sorry. Thanks, Todd.
So Rama's solution is ask for 3 years, put it all into monitored control by the community, distribute every quarter when deliverable was met, otherwise sends back to community pool. Yeah, solid model. Somebody else said that they have the same problem in Polkadot. It's not unique to the Cosmos.
Makes sense.
Funky one. Does the Cosmos ecosystem use bounties for funding? Something where a certain amount of deliverables must be completed before getting top up additional funding. That's basically DAO, right? So you can't do that with just an on-chain prop, but you can do it with something that has vesting, escrow, something like that.
Well, so that's not entirely true,
idea.
though. I have one interjection there. Secret actually does have funding proposals for specific bounties. And I think the way it works, last time I checked, was that basically it goes to a multi-sig. We say, hey, do we want to fund these? There's a vote on whether to fund it or not. And someone can pick it up, and once it's delivered, then they get paid. And that's just how it works. But as far as I'm aware, Secret's the only network that has that system built out. And it's done. People are actually implementing it. Secret Saturn, Alex from Secret Saturn has done several of them, I want to say. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
We should have somebody on from the secret team to talk about this.
I had no idea
that'd be
this
so
is
nice.
a thing. Like,
Yeah, you had no idea?
I had no idea. Like,
That's great.
Assaf's like, really? Do we? I didn't even know. That's funny.
I'm literally like not touching any funds, not dealing with money. I'm doing my personal taxes right now from 2020.
From 2020? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay some fines, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's a shit show. Can we circle back to the vesting implementation?
Yes.
Like how it works on the SDK, it's continuous. So I don't think that you have to like report it every block that you get a vesting event. Like I think that every time that you withdraw funds from the vesting account, then you need to report it as a vesting event.
I am very careful to not get into financial advice territory here because I'm not a tax lawyer, but I think it is quite different, basically depending on whether they start looking at them like shares or not, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And that's when it just gets into Jesus Christ, lads, just pay me in crypto. just pay us a number, and then we take 20% of that and we give that to the tax man, or 20, whatever it is. Whatever, it's gone up now. It's like it was I think 19. I think it's 20 this year. I think it goes up to 21 next year, and then it eventually is 25. Corporation tax going up.
Wow,
Whatever.
That's glorious. I paid in the 40s last year in taxes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have other taxes. Like if we sell a thing, then if we take a retainer in crypto, we have to pay VAT, like sales tax. So then it would be 40%, almost dead on. So yeah, but anyway, in conclusion, there was a whole bunch while we were talking about salaries. General conclusion is most countries it's about 30% on top, and there is a lot of discussion about how all that breaks down. And some people saying happy anniversary. This is I think technically show 53.
No.
Wait, no,
51.
This is 52.
No, it's 51.
I think it's 51.
Shh.
No, because we missed one.
Yeah, we skipped it.
So this is 52, but we did 2.5,
Oh, all right.
which was
Yeah,
one more.
This is
yes.
this is our 52nd show, but our 51st week.
Our 51st week. Yeah, exactly.
God.
So this is an anniversary. Wait, this is not the anniversary special. That's
Fuck it.
next week.
Who cares? It is. It's
You
close
got
enough.
pre-rugged. You got
It's close
pre-rugged.
next week we might actually have to be off time, so prepared because I think Schultz and I might be on planes,
That's right. Yep.
so we might have to do it on a different day. We might try to do it Friday. We were talking about Friday what the hell day is that? Third.
That sounds right. Man, I can't believe ETH Denver is next week. For everyone that's going to be in ETH Denver next week, come say hi. I've got stickers.
Yeah, me too. I got all sorts of shit.
Those
It's gonna be
stickers
fun.
are pretty ace. I'm incredibly jealous.
They're ace. We got all sorts. We got some game. That's cool, but we got some.
Look at that.
Wait,
That's really great. That's pretty awesome.
Now Super's pulling his out. He's like, wait, I want to show off my stickers. It's show and tell time right now.
We don't have Game of Nodes M&Ms because I was overruled. But, maybe there will be an event in Europe where I will go and there will be Game of Nodes M&Ms.
If you find us at Eat Denver, we have that, which is pretty legit. That's a good Game of Nodes sticker right there. What you guys see it? But the real one, should we show it?
Yeah, because I'm hyped to see it again.
This is
so
fucking alpha right there.
That
The WAG TJ sticker. That thing, we don't have a lot of these. It's like a real NFT.
It's cooler than an NFT. You can put it on your laptop.
Wow.
So Schultze and I and Kingnodes Null memes will be out there next week. We'll have some of these. We'll probably give some other friends of the show who are out at ETH Denver, like Jake will be out there, so we might have some of these to hand out. So, but yeah, we can. If you're out there, if not, you can email us at those stickers are dope at bigballsblockchain.com, and we might even send some in the mail. But yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're pretty sick. So yeah,
should we get to our guest?
Jealous about the ETH Denver, but we should probably talk to Assaf about Secret because it's like an hour in, as is tradition. As is tradition.
I'm okay.
We've ignored our guest. We've ignored our guest, but we should stop doing that. Hang on, just circle back. My brain just caught up with what happened. Did you just propose that we don't do Game of Nodes at the usual time next week?
I literally think we cannot, because I think that the three of us, you could do it by yourself, but I think the rest of us might be actually on an airplane or pretty close to it.
Oh, hey, you know what? I actually could be there next week that time. I arrive at noon in Denver.
I don't think we can get into the house until 4, which...
There's parks. We've seen Noel do it. Be a little safari guy.
I need that meme from the death of Stalin where Belushi, is it Belushi? No, it's Belushi. Bashimi is reading out the charges against Beria, and he's like, "You've been convicted of anti-Soviet behavior and will be shot." That's what's going on here. This is treason. You will be shot. Suggesting moving the time.
I know.
We've survived the great deshitting of 2022 and stayed on time every week, mostly, sort of.
It's funny.
Well, we had a couple times where we switched times, and we've been very consistent for the last 30 weeks now. We shifted a couple times.
We moved it up like an hour or back an hour or something like that, didn't we?
Well, originally it was much later, wasn't it? Like 3 hours, 4 hours later?
Yeah, I think we were allowing Noel to actually wake up and be coherent. Then we were just like, it doesn't need to. Doesn't need to be. It's fine. He can suffer. He can suffer. So, Assaf.
Hi.
You're in the playroom.
we keep going back to it, and then you just keep getting distracted again.
What's something else?
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about the upcoming upgrade on Secret?
Yeah, I guess.
Hell yeah, you do.
Yeah, not a major one, I guess. We're still dealing with the fallout from the SGX vulnerability. So we are going to rotate the encryption seeds and re-encrypt the entire state. We're also adding a light client inside the enclave, because on Secret, there's an attack vector where you can send false transactions on your node offline to try to steal information from contracts. So we're adding light client inside the enclave to try to mitigate that. So you'd have to have your transaction signed by the validators before you can execute it in a contract.
How is it that you can re-encrypt the state whenever I was under the impression that Secret had thrown away the encryption key? Is that not true? Or Secret Labs had thrown away?
We don't have the encryption key, but it's encrypted in it is stored in the encrypted files you have on every node. So when we compile a new version, a new enclave, it can read the encrypted files and use the encryption keys. So the new version will generate a new seed and then decrypt the entire state with the old seed and then re-encrypt it with the new seed. Well, actually,
Got it.
it's going to be a lazy approach. We won't do it synchronously in the upgrade handler, but once you access a state key, it will decrypt it with the old seed and then encrypt it with the new seed. So it won't take a week to do the upgrade.
Got it. Interesting. So I guess if you can decrypt it, what was the point of tossing the seed originally then? If that's a valid question. I don't know if I'm asking the right
Yeah, I'm not
question.
sure what do you mean by tossing the seed?
Yeah, so I was under the impression that in order to build the daemons, basically, you have a key that basically allows for the encryption. I was under the impression that Secret had basically gotten rid of it so that they wouldn't be able to unencrypt the state.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. These are two different things. So the first thing is when we upgraded the network on September 2020 with the secret contracts, there was just one validator which generated a random seed, and then validators started to join the network and got the seed from the bootstrap validator, and then once enough rejoined the network, we deleted the machine. So it was kind of like a trusted setup. You had to trust Secret Labs to not extract the seed somehow. But then the other thing is that we have a private key to compile new enclaves with. So in theory, we have a backdoor, so we can compile, offline compile a version and extract the seed, which we never did. But in theory, we did this. We can do this. And the reason is because if you write encrypted files with SGX to the file system, then you can only decrypt them with the current enclave or with the a private key of the developer, which is us. So in order to do chain upgrades, it was a trade-off. If we didn't do this that way, we wouldn't be able to do chain upgrades.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of convoluted explanation, but yeah.
No, I thought it made sense. There's basically two different keys there. One for basically compiling the daemon, and one for what was the original validator, effectively that initiated the initial encryption process. Is that right?
Yeah, it had to be a random value, so we couldn't do this in consensus. Right now, we're looking at ways to do this in the future, to rotate keys and somehow with MPC have all the validators calculate a new random number, which no one knows besides them. But that's not easy.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
So I've been talking with Erdeman, and he said that during this upgrade we can rotate our consensus keys. Is that what he's talking about, or is what's happening there, and what spurred the rotation of consensus keys? Because that seems really interesting, considering that's such an in vogue conversation piece right now on Twitter with all nodes.
Yeah.
So it seems interesting, an interesting coincidence.
Also two different things, the consensus keys of the validators in Tendermint, it's not what we're doing at all. We're rotating the encryption seed, which we call consensus seed, I guess. Encryption consensus seed, which is the value. It's 32 bytes of value that from it you can derive all the encryption keys in the network. What the white hat researchers did in the SGX hack is to extract that seed using an SGX vulnerability. So effectively, they could decrypt transactions, inputs and outputs. State is a bit more complicated. They weren't able to do this. But yeah, because of that, we need to rotate the seed to a seed that they don't know, like to ensure that no one knows the seed. Even though, they swore that they deleted the seed, we don't really know if they did.
Okay, so I thought that the previous upgrade was what had handled that. So it's this one now then. Okay.
Yeah, we it was a bit more complicated. We just patched the SGX vulnerability in the previous upgrade. Yeah, not fun couple of months.
No, it was pretty stressful. But for a while there, we were down to only a couple of nodes when normally for any network we have our standard node, then a couple of backups, which we use to communicate via Horcrux. But all that basically went down for a while OVH Cloud was updating their BIOS. So it was kind of horrifying for a while there.
That's all just been, what is that, Schulte? That's SGX specific requirements that either are not being exposed or keep moving forward, and the providers you're using are, or is it a BIOS issue, or is it just like, is it architecture?
Yeah.
What's the core of that?
Assaf, you probably know better than me. Please go ahead.
It's a BIOS issue. Like Intel distribute the BIOS patch to the OEMs, and then they need to create like a BIOS for their machines, which they don't do
right
like in time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure at that scale they have like tens or 20s of thousands of machines. So like to be able to push a BIOS patch is not a small issue, right? So it's got to be tested. It's got to go through a pretty long process to get out there. So so it's the same hardware. SGX is on the chip, right? It's not a separate hardware chip, right? It's actually in the Xeons or whatever else. And so it's just a BIOS enabling of that you guys are using.
Yeah.
It's a little nuanced in that there's software controlled SGX and there's hardware controlled SGX.
Yeah.
And Secret only works for hardware controlled SGX, which I suppose suggests that there's like a separate enclave on the motherboard itself.
I thought it's in the die, isn't it? Isn't it in the Xeon itself? Or is it in the chip? Or is it a separate like SGX chip that's sitting in the motherboard somewhere?
It's in the chip. I think the software one is just for simulating. Not sure if it's really secure for any application.
Yeah. So and then based on what you guys are doing, it requires different. This is a stupid word, but almost like an API or a call that you're using to the SGX module. Those things obviously evolve over time, and so therefore it needs a BIOS specific type structure that you guys are using to be able to enable functionality. So I could see cloud-based vendors. They're probably lagging based on what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So it might be better to run in your own. Here you go. Schulte, you're looking for a way to stand up your own data center. Here you go. Perfect.
I definitely thought about that.
You're in charge of your own BIOS, at least for Secret.
Sounds amazing. That sounds like exactly what I want. Yes.
The good news is that you control your own BIOS. The bad news is you control your own BIOS.
Yeah, I want none of that, to be honest with you.
That's right.
One thing I'm curious about with the new upgrade is I read that there's going to be auto compounding of staking rewards without using Auth0 or anything. How does that work? Is it just going to be automatic?
It's an opt-in feature. You'd have to send a transaction for a delegator and validator pair to enable auto compounding. And I think every 100 blocks, it just claims your rewards and then immediately stakes them again. Just a little tweak in the SDK. Nothing much.
Really? Okay, so it's not going to require like a separate validator wallet or anything then? Because with running Restake, we have to make sure all of our funds are constantly topped up. It's just automatic.
No, but you can't like you can't force your delegators to auto restake, because then to claim the rewards, they need to essentially unbond for 21 days. So we thought people won't love it, so so it's an opt-in feature for now.
That seems like a great upstream patch to me.
Yeah, actually, we weren't sure. It's still experimental. We weren't sure how much overhead it will add. Kind of like the osmosis epoch, but every 100 blocks. So maybe we'd have to stretch that a bit. So yeah, kind of experimental, but we wanted to play with it.
So when you say every 100 blocks, do you mean every 100 blocks based off of when they sent the auto compound command, or do you mean every like block mod 100
I
is
think
0 kind of
block
thing?
mod 100. It's a param. It's an on-chain param, but I think the initial value is 100.
Got it. So if someone sent off the transaction at block 99, they would then compound the next block. That's pretty cool. Interesting. It effectively would be kind of like micro epochs, I guess, then.
Yeah, interesting to see how it will affect chain performance once enough people opt in.
Frey, what are you doing over there?
I'm mute. Fuck. God, you got him off guard. Still on mute.
He's panicking. That's all I can see.
Come on, Boomer.
My mouse died, and then
Holy shit.
the fucking StreamYard unmute is a massive pain.
It
So
is.
I couldn't unmute because I was just like, so I just had to kind of, there's a laptop over here. I just had to grab the laptop and do the thing where it's kind of, sorry, that was pretty distracting. Just like, fucking unfuck the thing.
Well, it looked very
Frenzy.
distressing.
It's just annoying when everything's kind of plugged in on a thing on the wall. You're just like, anyway, sorry, ignore me.
And how is it with having a new kid? You have like a 3-month-old.
Yeah.
3-month-old now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a 3-month-old. She's a cute baby, but she wakes up a lot. And I also have like a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old, which also tends to wake up. I'm surprised she's asleep right now, but yeah. I don't get a lot of sleep nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. Young kids, man, it's all about sleep. That's the only thing that's important. Like that's everything else is, it's tough to sleep train, especially like 3.5 months or like is to get to 6, 7 months, 8 months. Like it's really tough to sleep train to get them to the point where they can go through the night and everything else.
I think you can't sleep train at 3 months, maybe 6.
No, too early. Yeah, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was like our one big thing was like trying to train our kids how to actually sleep, which sounds ridiculous, right? Like it sounds like the idea of sleep training sounds silly. Like what are you talking about? Like they just go to sleep, right? And they sleep. No, like like actually getting into very repeatable structures where kids that age, even any age, but they like repeatability and structure. And if you can kind of build that over time.
Yusuf is like, we need to make this
Fucking hell.
repeatable and automate it. So
Exactly.
that,
Right. We need a
can
DAO
scale
for
this
sleep training. We need a
really
DAO.
scale this operation
Exactly.
beyond our primitive constraints. But
Sleep
remember
training
that
DAO.
for every 1 hour of sleep loss you have, you need to add 30% extra.
the mint. Yeah, exactly.
As the employee contribution.
The mint goes to shit
parent
once.
contribution.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
It can be very frustrating to see your kid very, very tired, but she doesn't know that she needs to sleep, and then you have to fight to get her to sleep. So yeah, and also no one, like you don't get it until you have kids, how much the lack of sleep for yourself affects you.
Oh yeah. And like for us, it was always like, and like this is too much, but there's bottle feeding or breastfeeding, right? So that also plays a role in like who's up and who's awake and who's doing all that work. And then so your role as a dad becomes just to maintain some sort of semblance of order and try to protect your wife and like, because you're useless in the middle of the night. I can't do shit, right? So like I can't do anything at every 2 hours for the first 6 months, but I can be there to say, this sucks. I agree. I could be like, I want to be awake for that. I don't want to just sleep through it and be like, oh, how was last night? I got 12 hours of sleep. How did you do? Yeah. So yeah, I know it's tough.
Be strong.
I've
Harry.
heard of people that have done that. Like they just go and sleep in a different room.
Well, so
it's insane to. I mean, no surprise that a lot of those, I think, relationships don't last. Imagine my surprise. But so.
Every relationship and kids are always different. My advice to new dads has always been this: like the mother, there's a maternal nature to be able to take care of that child, right? And so that mother's going to do everything possible. Wouldn't sleep for days, right? Like, and you as the member of the family with a thing swinging between your legs really can't do anything to make that better. What you can do is make her life better.
Yeah.
That's it. So whether that is doing simple things like cleaning up or taking shit out of the way or doing things to make sure that her life is only focused on that child, that is honestly the only benefit that you can provide, because otherwise you're just in the fucking way.
Yeah.
Like,
also don't wait for instructions. Like,
no, exactly. Yeah. Don't be like, so does this need to be picked up or do I need to clean these dishes? No, just fucking do it. Like, just get out of the way. It's just stand up and do it. And just focus on making her life better. And her job is to make that baby's life better. Right. And that's the only advice I've ever gotten that I received, and which was really good advice, because I want to get involved. Like I want to step inside and be able to help with these kids and whatever else. And I quickly realized I have no fucking role here. I can't nourish this kid. I can maybe walk around and burp it. And maybe if we get to the point of like breast milk in bottles, I can feed it. But other than that, I mean, useless, right? Like Assaf, you're just in the way, right?
Yeah.
Like, so the goal is the goal is you just gotta like make your wife's life as easy as you can, knowing that it's going to be miserable for 6 to 8 months.
So you're telling me that when you have a 2 or 3 multi-sig with your newborn, and you vote and execute the go to bed instruction, the child is not bound by the result on the blockchain.
I have no idea what the fuck you just said. Is that a DAO situation?
Is this a DAO?
Is this a DAO? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if childhood's a DAO. I don't think it is. There's no equality in that situation.
In all likelihood, it's not a DAO, is it? Well, there's no equality in a DAO, is there?
That's true.
So maybe it is. Maybe
that's true. I don't know. This is.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it's worth remembering that the person who first introduced me to the concept of DAOs was also the one who I can quote as saying, "Well, look, mate, at the end of the day, everything's a Ponzi when you really think about it."
It's all a Ponzi. That's true. That part's accurate.
You make of that what you will about DAOs.
You could say that the child is the only one with voting power.
That's true. Yeah, at 4 a.m.
It's a 1 of 3 multi-sig, and you are not the signer.
At 4 a.m. it doesn't. Yeah, it's 100% that way, man. Let me tell you. Yeah. So the only thing I would say is don't sleep through when your wife is up every 2 hours. You can sleep through some of those, but every time.
So you're saying don't tell her to like be quiet when she closes the door behind her?
It's I don't know, man. It's tough. I think it's yeah. Our kids are 20 months apart, so I think Assaf, you have a little bit more than that, but like it's when they're young, and the good news is it just gets harder. It's different, but it gets harder. It's different.
Wow, 20 months.
They sleep through the night, but you get all sorts of random. Yeah, it gets crazy.
How old are they right now?
9 and 11. 9 and 11. Yeah, so it's been a while, but
yeah.
Yep.
Wow, 20 months is not a lot.
20 months is not a lot. Yeah, but again, like I think it's. If you guys are you guys done or one more?
I don't know.
More.
I don't have voting power either.
Bear in mind,
it's a different DAO.
Usurper, I have to remind you, this is a podcast. I know we joke about this being the group chat. Just like, Assaf, also, can you just remind us of your mother's maiden name, the address of the first house you lived in, your date of birth, like some more doxing information would be like
Your
super
favorite
fucking
car.
great. Yeah. What's your favorite? What was your favorite pet's name? You know,
Cosmos
Oh
is
my
not
God.
about the airdrops. It's
Not
just about
really.
the friends you make along the way.
the real airdrop was the
Friends you make
real
along the
airdrop
Oh,
was the
a
friends
kid
you
is
made
up.
along the
See, look at up from the seat.
kid's up.
There it goes.
Oh dear! For those of you listening at home,
It's too funny.
Assaf has got up from
Yep.
his chair in a hurry, and
I'm
then
guessing
turned
the
off
2.5-year-old
lights
is
on the way
awake.
out, but the camera is still
Yep.
recording.
Shit.
This is probably the peak Game of Nodes moment, really, right there, isn't it?